On your Tuesday episode of Locked On Raptors, the draft gods were not kind to the Toronto Raptors as a coin flip leaves them picking 19th when they could have picked as high as 16th with the Pacers pick in this year's draft. We'll talk about why that's actually not all that bad. Plus, we'll imagine a scenario where the draft gods are kind to the Raptors on lottery night. All coming up. Thanks for hanging.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Tuesday, April the 23rd, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 10 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on the Bad website at Woodley Sean. You can find the show on Instagram at Locked On Raptors, and of course, you can join us over in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. The link is in the description of the podcast. It's free to join. We'd love to see you come and join us in our lovely little listener community we got building around the show. Tons of draft talk, people sharing their personal draft boards, talking about fake trades, talking about the playoffs. Holy hell, Jamal Murray, what a game winner. All of that going on in the Discord. Come hang out with sickos just like you who love the podcast, who love hoop, and want to talk about such things on a platform that isn't so mean and toxic all the time. It's a great place to come and hang. Of course, you can find the show for free wherever you get your podcasts. Follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend, all that good stuff. Always appreciated when you support the show. However you support the show, you can also find us on YouTube. Go to the channel, subscribe, then hit the notification bell, and you'll get a heads up via push notification every single time the show is about to premiere or go live, which is an awesome thing. Go ahead and do that. Today's show is brought to you by Monopoly Go, the wonderful mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly that will help you tap into your competitive side. Join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. All right, on today's show, we have draft news to pass along, and then we'll do some hypothetical draft stuff as it regards to the one thing we don't yet know about where the Raptors will be selecting, which is where will their own pick be, if anywhere, in the upcoming NBA draft. But we did get some clarity yesterday on the 19th pick that they will be taking in lieu of the Pacers as part of the Pascal Siakam trade. Yes, it will be 19th overall. There was a chance it would be as high as 16th, but a successive loss or a series of successive coin flip losses leaves the Raptors picking 19th, fourth of the four teams that were spread out between 16, 17, 18, and 19, which is, a bummer. If you are like me, and you are of the should have kept Pascal persuasion, and you don't like that trade, and you find that trade to be an affront to your very being, then hey, this is great for your agenda at least. And picking 19th in exchange for Pascal Siakam this season, not as good as it could have been. Picking 16th, of course, that is not your favorite. You want to have the pick of your guys. You want to be drafting higher. It's, welcome to how draft orders work. However, I do think it's not the worst thing in the world. We'll get into that on today's show. We're also going to get into what happens on lottery night if the Raptors move on up, whether it's to 1, whether it's 2, 3, or 4. What are the different things I would advise as the person who just kind of opines on this stuff from my chair here, if the Raptors have various things happen to them on lottery night. And at the end of the show, I want to talk about Alex Sarr, who to me, as we talked about last week with Rich Stamen, and having spent more time watching Alex Sarr over the weekend, I feel good about him being a good NBA player and the only clear fit in the top 6 or so for the Raptors, if in fact he's available for them. So we'll get to Sarr in a bit of a scouting report on him coming up later on. But let's get into the 19th pick. We now know the Raptors will pick 19th and 31st in this year's draft, which, yeah, it'd be nice if it was 16th and 31st for sure. It would be even nicer if Pascal Siakam were on the team and they'd made that work. But of course, we can't fix what's already been broken in the past. We got to live with what we got. And so 19th and 31st will be where the Raptors select. I actually don't think this is some bad, horrible thing that's befallen the Raptors that they've fallen from 16th to 19th. That's because of the draft that we're talking about, right? This is a draft where the talent pool feels kind of uniquely flat from the late mid-lottery even to like the early 30s. There's just like a lot of guys who I think every team is going to kind of have their own set of, oh, I think this guy's better than this guy. I believe in this guy's flaw getting sorted out more than I believe in this guy's flaw getting sorted out. I think the team-to-team evaluations of a lot of these guys between like 7 and 35 in this draft are going to be very widely varied. I think there's going to be a ton of variance in terms of how these teams perceive these guys. And so there's a real chance that a guy who the Raptors might fancy or who you draft prognosticator from your own chair might prefer or want to see the Raptors select. And I think, to jump from 16 down to 19, maybe that takes a couple guys off the board, but I still think there's a very real chance that if you liked someone at 16, there's still a good chance that guy will be there at 19. I don't think there's any sort of declared order that this draft is going to go in. There may be tiers. There are sections of guys who might go higher than other sections of guys, but even then, it feels very flat. It feels like it's going to be very team dependent. And what are the needs, especially considering this is a role player draft. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, more coming on up in the next segment. But the concept of fit, I think, is fascinating in this draft because often you see this sort of clamor for, pick best player available, most talent on the board, et cetera, et cetera. Don't draft for fit. But sometimes, especially when you're focusing on role players, fit does matter. Like, you have to figure out how these guys are going to fill gaps between your already existing good players, which the Raptors already have. And so, I think a lot of these teams will be looking at these various options in this range and looking at fit maybe more prominently than you typically would in your usual draft year where, kind of just going for the high-end talent wins out. This draft is not stacked with high-end talent. And so fit actually is going to be, in many cases, what determines just how successful a lot of these guys are going to be. And so there's a real chance that, again, if you thought there was someone at 16 who you fancied, they're still going to be there at 19. And there are just a lot of guys in this range. Someone will be there for the Raptors at 19 to make you feel all right. The one thing I would absolutely advise the Raptors not to do with 19 and 31 is trade up using those picks. Trade back all you want. I think trading back in this draft is probably a pretty interesting idea, as we'll get to coming up in just a second here. But I think with 19 and 31, you're in the spot, you're in that sort of range where there's all sorts of guys to throw darts around to try to get in your team to see if you can turn them into something. I think just staying in those spots, keeping those two picks, I don't want to see them package both picks and move up to 11 or 12 or something like that. I think the draft class is too flat to really justify doing something like that. And if anything, I would like to see them pick up extra picks, whether it's for following years or later in this draft, more throws at the dartboard, whatever it might be. I just don't think, even though there might be some disappointment from not being a little bit higher up with that 16th pick they could have had from the Pacers, I don't think you can get duped into the idea of trading up for somebody unless you are fully 100% ironclad. I know this guy is going to be incredible. Then you go ahead and do it. But I don't really see how that's ever possible to have that kind of declarative feeling about anyone in a draft, let alone any of the guys in this draft, all of whom have a ton of question marks, a ton of caveats, a ton of really good things offset by really concerning things in their profiles. And so, yeah, the one thing I'm saying here is don't trade up, be at 19 and 31, and be happy to have a couple of throws at the dartboard in a range of the draft where there'll be a lot of guys who could potentially hit for you if you get it right. You can also vary it up, right? Maybe at 19, you go for a higher upside play. 31, you go for more of a sort of classic, adult who's played a lot of ball, maybe a longer term college player, whatever it might be. Maybe you invert that. At 19, you go for the more tried and true, projectable, steady pro versus 31 being the place where you really swing high on upside. Having both of those picks is interesting, as long as they just stay in those spots, or again, trade back and get more looks in that range of the draft, which I frankly think is the most interesting part of this draft. I think the top end of this draft, pretty underwhelming, man. And I continue to feel this way. The more and more I dive in, I want to feel compelled to, hitch my wagon to some of these guys who are in the top upper class of this draft. I just can't get there. It's just, there's a lot of caveats, a lot of concerns, a lot of red flags, a lot of fit issues that could potentially arise, especially with this Raptors team, the way it's currently constructed. And so for me, it's not ideal. Of course, you'd rather be picking higher, but being at 19 and 31, completely fine. Nothing to lose too much sleep about. There will be guys there for the Raptors to take if they just let the draft come to them. Side note as well, ends up the Raptors give up pick 29 to the Utah Jazz for the Kelly Olynyk Ochai Agbaji trade. You're more than fine with that. That's perfectly all right. Kelly Olynyk's going to be on this team and very useful and helpful for the next couple seasons. That trade's a win, whether it's just Olynyk who pops or not. If Agbaji hits and actually figures himself out as a role player, as a rotation player, that trade becomes an absolute home run. And it already might be close to a home run because I'm not too much worried about losing pick 29 in a draft where they already have 19 and 31. It's all good. We'll come back on the other side, get into the draft lottery, and the hopes, the dreams, the wonder that's out there. Could they in fact win this thing? What happens if they win this thing? What if the draft gods are kind? We'll get into that coming up in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks, the single best place to play daily fantasy sports right now during the postseason for the NHL and NBA in particular. All you got to do is pick more or less on 2 or more player stat projections on a given night and watch the winnings roll. And you can do it cross sport as well, an NHL player and a basketball player. What a wonderful thing. It's all there on Prize Picks for you. Get into the playoff action, win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball and hockey's postseason. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball, hockey. Of course, the WNBA season is coming up as well. MLB, all kinds of wonderful stuff on there. Many different sports to choose from for your entries each and every night over at Prize Picks. And again, it's just you against the projections. It's not some expert in a basement somewhere with an unassailable roster you got to beat. No, you projections. That's it. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDINNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app. Download it today. Use the code LOCKEDINNBA. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy. All right, back at it here. We've talked about the Raptors' misfortune during the coin flippings on Monday, the ceremonial coin flippings, which should be televised, I think, on Monday to determine draft ties in the order. Again, Raptors picking 19 and 31. It remains a mystery, however, where or whether they will pick at all in the upper reaches of this draft. You know the deal by now. The Toronto Raptors are 6th in the draft lottery odds. They have a 9% chance at the first overall pick. They have a 37% chance of moving into the top 4. They have a 46% chance of keeping their pick at all. And that's the situation they find themselves in. More coin flips sure to decide the Toronto Raptors' fate, even if they're not actually coin flips happening. Coin flips in spirit, nonetheless. So, look, I think we should probably talk a little bit about just sort of the different avenues if, in fact, the Raptors do find themselves getting some luck on lottery night. We've seen it before, right? Won the lottery in 2006. That worked out great. They won the lottery or moved up in the lottery in 2021 and got themselves Scottie freaking Barnes, and that rocked. What happens this time if they move up? I think it's a little less cut and dry than it was during that 2021 lead up where that draft class was seemingly stacked and loaded. Jalen Suggs, Scottie Barnes, Evan Mobley, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green. It felt like there was going to be someone there for the Raptors who it was a no-brainer. Okay, we're taking this guy and we're laughing. And that's what happened. They took the guy no one expected in Scottie Barnes, but obviously things have worked out pretty swimmingly since then for a 4th overall pick. Scottie Barnes rocks. And now Scottie Barnes is the guy that you're trying to build a team around with any other future picks that come in. I think there's a lot of different ways this can go if the Raptors move up. Obviously, if they move it to number 1, I think the move is clear. We'll talk about Alex Sarr coming up, but I think you just take Alex Sarr and laugh. I have been of the mind that it's better for the Raptors to convey the pick, and that's been with the sort of knowledge that there's a 9% chance that the actual best thing is the Raptors move up to first and get themselves Alex Sarr. That would be fantastic. We'll get into the scouting report on why Sarr fits so well. But to me, it's pretty clear. And it does seem like the draft people out there are beginning to come to something of a consensus that Alex Sarr should be the number 1 pick in this year's draft. They have not found very much of a consensus at all in anything this season with the top prospects. But it does seem like Sarr is crystallizing his grip on that first overall pick, whoever it ends up being. Of course, the team that gets the first overall pick may have a different need. Maybe they don't need a center, whatever. Things can change. But if that's the case, I do think Alex Sarr, in most cases is going to go number 1. And if the Raptors go up to number 1, I think it's a no-brainer. Alex Sarr is the obvious pick. Again, more on him coming up. Where it gets super interesting to me is if the Raptors end up 2nd, 3rd, or 4th. Obviously, 6th, is a whole other thing. I think 6 is like the least place you want to pick in this draft. I think you want to be in the top 4, or you want to not have your pick and convey it to next season for the long-term health benefits that come from conveying the pick now and just getting it off of and out of your life and off the books, et cetera, et cetera. But second, third, or fourth, it's interesting, right? Even 6th is interesting, and I do think it's interesting mostly for the prospect of trading back in this draft. Talked a lot about in the last segment about that range, 15 through 35, I think is kind of the sweet spot in this draft where there's going to be a lot of guys who have questions, but who have upside and who have positional fit with the Raptors, who I think are probably the guys you're going to want to take the most dart throws on. And if you can trade back from 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 6th into that range to get a couple more dart throws in that range, I don't think that's a bad call, especially if you can pick up extra picks going forward. We've seen this happen before, right? The Thunder love to do this. The Thunder love to pay the premium of a pick down the road to move up to a spot where they can take a guy they really want. Maybe they're going to be after a guy like Donovan Clingan to be a big man to fill in next to Chet Holmgren or behind Chet Holmgren, whatever. Maybe they want to move up. Maybe that's their guy. Maybe they pay a premium and give you extra assets going forward to get that spot. I think the Raptors should be all ears, wide open, phones ringing off the hook, answering all the phones when it comes to trade back possibilities, because I have like pretty serious fit concerns about a lot of the guys in the range from 2 to 6 draft. I just do. And I know, again, fit is not everything. Talent wins out most of the time. I don't think this draft is stacked with enough talent to overcome the concern with fit, when fit is kind of everything when you're putting together this Raptors team right now. Scottie Barnes is awesome, but Scottie Barnes is a particular kind of player who needs to play with particular kinds of players. And I think the guys they have now, in most cases, work pretty well. I think Emmanuel Quickley fits beautifully. I think RJ Barrett, we saw in a less ball-dominant role, fits really beautifully playing in an offense where Scottie Barnes is one of the hubs. I think Scottie and Jakob Poeltl, we've seen there's a fit there. We've seen there's a fit with him and Kelly Olynyk. Him and Grady Dick have great chemistry. Him and Gary Trent Jr. historically have played very well together. But you can't just go and draft any player and expect they're going to fit next to Scottie Barnes. And this is my biggest concern with the wing prospects in this tier of the draft. There's Ron Holland, there's Matas Buzelis, and there is, who's the other one? Zachary Risacher are kind of the 3 guys who come to mind as the wing prospects in this range of the draft that in theory, if the Raptors move up, it's like, oh, wow, we get to take one of these wings. Fantastic. I think it might be more beneficial, frankly, to get more shots later in the draft and not take a swing on these guys just because of the questions that exist with them right? Like there's a real chance that you take one of these guys at 2nd overall and it takes them many years to figure it out, or they just never become even worth what they're earning as a 2nd overall pick. If in fact they jump up to 2 or 3 or 4, those guys make a lot of money. Like those are big contracts for rookie standards. And if you're drafting someone at 2nd or 3rd in a draft where there's no real clear star talent, there's no clear future all-star even in this group, like there's a real chance you're paying a pretty good amount of money for a guy who's underperforming the draft slot at 2nd, 3rd, or 4th. I would much rather trade back from this spot into the, again, that sort of area of the dartboard you want to be at in this draft, just based on what I'm looking at. I'm also an idiot. Okay. Like I don't know what I'm talking about nearly half as much or a third as much or a quarter or a tenth or an ounce as much as most of the people who cover this stuff. But just looking at the board, looking at the landscape of this draft class, it does feel like being at the top could be a little less beneficial than normal. But maybe there's a team out there that it covets a guy. Again, I think the evaluations on these guys are going to be very different. I think the team contexts are going to matter. And maybe there's a team out there that really wants Ron Holland at 2. If that's the case, I'm opening up the phone. I'm chatting. I'm talking about trading back and finding ways to pick up extra assets going forward to continue to bolster the overall talent accrual that this team is going to have to do over the next couple seasons to fill in the back end of the roster behind Scottie, Quickley, RJ, etc. Again, the fit concerns, we'll get more into sort of deep dives on Ron Holland, on Matas Buzelis, on Zachary Risacher, but these 3 guys in particular come to mind. Stephon Castle as well. Just the fit with the shooting concerns, play styles, sort of similarities to Scottie Barnes in some cases, in particular with Ron Holland. You read a Ron Holland scouting report, and a lot of it is, it's a guy who's super athletic, not a great shooter, pretty decent passer, likes to pass and create with the ball in his hands, like, it lines up kind of a lot with what Scottie Barnes is as a player. And if you're drafting a guy with the highest pick that I'm sure they hope to have for the next little while here, I think you have to actually factor in fit here. Look, I get it. Sometimes you go for fit and you take DeAndre Ayton over Luka Doncic. There's no Luka Doncic in this draft. There's just not. So I don't think that risk of drafting for fit and hurting yourself because you missed and left a big talent on the board is really there. This is not a draft where a game-changing talent really exists at all. And so even Alex Sarr, we'll get to it, like very high-end like upside for him, but a lot of ways in which that doesn't get reached. And so I think for me, fit has to be the priority with this high pick. And I just don't know if anyone in that range of the draft who is projected to go there fits all that well. You can always reach, right? Like if there's someone you really like at 6, you don't have to be beholden to the draft boards. You could take Keyshawn George at 6 if you wanted to, and that's fine. I wouldn't have a problem with it. Like it's, the scouting staff has their own thing. The Raptors have proven they can overdraft based on consensus and have a lot of success with it in the past. I wouldn't be upset about that, but it's just as far as like asset management goes, if you are in the second, third, or fourth slot in this draft, you move up on lottery night and teams are looking at various guys. Maybe there's a team that really wants Nikola Topic, for example, that they really want Richese or Holland, whatever. You can take advantage of that, get some more assets for yourself, and still feel pretty good about your draft haul with picks 19, 31, and whatever you get for trading back as well. And so, again, back to Holland. Like, I think the fit overlap with Scottie Barnes, pretty serious concern. And I just don't know if either of those guys benefits from playing with the other one. It feels like those two guys maybe should just play on different teams and do similar things for different teams. I think Richese, his three-point shooting has fallen off a cliff in the back part of the season over in France. There are some serious questions from the scouting community as to whether or not it was like a hot streak for him to start the year, whether the three-point shooting is real. And if it's not real, if there are serious concerns there, like shooting matters. Like you have to have shooting in whomever you're going to slot in as a fifth guy next to quickly RJ, Scottie, Pirtle. The reality is you just have to have that guy be an above average shooter if you want that lineup to make any sense as a long-term group. And maybe it doesn't. Maybe Pirtle is on the way out someday. Maybe RJ Barrett's not a perfect fit and he's not long for this group, beyond 2, 3, 4 years. Maybe that there's a change there at some point. But if you want that to work as a group, quickly RJ, Scottie, Pirtle, the fifth guy has to shoot. He just has to. It's 2024 in the modern NBA. You can't have guys who are non-shooters. And RJ Barrett and Scottie Barnes, as much as they had success from deep this year, RJ Barrett shot at like 40% from deep as a Raptor. It was incredible. Scottie, we know he had the incredibly hot start, petered out as the season went along. Defenses don't care if RJ Barrett and Scottie Barnes are wide open on the perimeter. You have to have people who make defenses care because that makes defenses change their thinking. It makes them compromise themselves. It puts them at a position. It opens up places for others to attack on the floor. And if you have Emmanuel Quickley, who in his own right, a bloody amazing shooter, and 4 meh to non-shooters on the floor with him, you're not setting that lineup up for success long-term. And you would assume whoever you take with this high pick is someone you want to envision one day filling in the gaps in a potential quickly Barrett, Scottie-led group. And so I have serious questions about the wings in this section of the draft. Castle's the exact same thing, and he's a little bit small too, right? And so you got to blend shooting and you got to blend size/defense. Give me as many looks in that range between 15 and 35. Maybe you end up with a Tristan da Silva and Keyshawn George. If you can pick up an extra pick, wow, there's a Tijan Salon or something like that as well. There's a lot of guys in this range who I think you'd feel comfortable with having similar upside or higher than a lot of the guys projected to go in the top 6. Why they keep on being projected in the top 6, even though most people agree the top 6 is bad, I don't understand why draft consensus and boards happen the way they do. They just do. But I think in this case, fit has to be everything. It really does. When you're sort of parsing between guys whose raw level of talent is not all that different, it's got to be fit because you already have the pillars of your team in Quickley, in Barnes, in Pirtle for now, in RJ Barrett. Like you got to find guys who fit alongside those guys. And hey, hopefully you take some swings in there with upside as well. And maybe one of those guys becomes more something closely resembling a star to you, even though I don't know if there's all that much in terms of star power in this group of draft eligible players. Anyway, we'll leave that there. We'll come back on the other side and talk about what happens if they get the first overall pick and just, it's simple. You take Alex Sarr, Pretty exciting. He's a cool player. We'll have that scouting report coming up in just one sec. Today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off of our chest. Big or small, certain things can really start to get to you, and it's important to let that out, to talk about it with somebody who is unbiased on your life. We all have stuff going on, right? We got relationships that need tending to. We have job decisions and career and life advice we need to seek out. And having a therapist that can help you guide you through the tough parts of life is a really valuable thing. I know a ton of people who have really benefited from therapy, just to have someone to talk to. Yes, it's great if you've had major trauma and you need to sort through that, but it's also super valuable if you're just dealing with the little stuff that life throws at you day by day. Therapy can be different for everybody. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports team, and it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Monopoly Go, and I love Monopoly Go. I've been told I can be a tad competitive. This is just the way it is, especially when I play board games or video games or whatever it is against my friends and family. I can be something of a tyrant, and that's because I'm just better at these games than all of them. It's not my fault. It's their fault for not being as good. You don't like it, pitch better. Either way, you want to tap into your competitive side, you can do that with Monopoly Go. It's been downloaded over 150 million times, and it's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. The best part is it's messing with your friends. Of course, messing with your friends is the best part of anything. It's why we play fantasy sports. It's why we do anything. It's why we wake up in the morning. It's to mess with our pals. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly. You can now also heist their vaults for riches for yourself. And the leaderboards show you exactly who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just for your competitive side that's going to love it. You're going to team up as well with your friends and people from all around the world in timed tournaments to earn huge rewards as well. So get into the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now for free at the App Store or Google Play. All right, wrapping things up here, talking about Alex Sarr, the prospective number one pick in this year's draft, and a guy who I think is the very clear and obvious choice if the Raptors get the number one pick. If the Raptors get 2 or 3 and he falls to them by some serendipity, then hell yeah, that's awesome. You take Alex Sarr and you don't think twice. Beyond Alex Sarr, less enthused about the prospects and their potential fit with the Raptors for what they need at the moment, which brings us to the trade back thing. But for now, let's talk about Alex Sarr, because we're going to live in a world where the Raptors win the lottery and get themselves a pretty damn interesting big man prospect to throw into their mix next to Scottie Barnes, next to Kelly Olynyk, behind Jakob Poeltl. Some interesting potential lineup flexibility and variability with a guy like Alex Sarr. Of course, Alex Sarr has been playing for the Perth Wildcats down in Australia. Lots of prospects coming through Australia these days. Over the course of this season, Perth 36 minutes. He only played 17 minutes a game for Perth this season, so he didn't have a ton in terms of counting stats. 9 points, 5 boards, etc. Per 36 minutes, Alex Sarr, 20 points, 9 boards, 1.8 assists, a steal, and 2.8 blocks per 36 minutes. Pretty impressive stuff. Shot 29.8% from deep. We'll get into that. 60% from 2-point range. Some room for him to work on his finishing and stuff like that as well, which we'll get to. But overall, what you're looking at with Alex Sarr is defense, and flexible defense, versatile defense. I've been saying a lot. The Raptors need wings. They need wings, and they need wings in this draft. But they also could really, really use a switchable big man to offer some variability in the way they can play defense. Jakob Poeltl, awesome back, stand back, deep drop rim protector. I think he works very well in that construct. And of course, he can once in a while meander out to the perimeter, stay in front of guys. He's got quick, smart feet, all of that. But I wouldn't say that's the traditional best role for Jakob Poeltl. Kelly Olynyk, we know, defense, not so much his thing. If he can play next to someone as a 4, where the 5 is just like a defensive insulator, a guy who can cover for his mistakes, cover for guys who are getting blow-bys, things like that, that feels like the best way to optimize a Kelly Olynyk over the next couple of seasons while he's on the Raptors as well. I think there's some element of Jakob Poeltl doing that for Kelly Olynyk, but I do think that's a pretty slow front court to work with not a ton in terms of switchability, versatility, etc. Alex Sarr brings pretty impressive perimeter defense to the table for a guy who's 7'1". He's huge. He is bouncy. He is long. He is super athletic. As Kevin O'Connor writes at The Ringer, he's kind of more like a wing in a big man's body, which is perfectly fine by me. 7'1", that'll hang as a big man. And if he can, kind of do the thing where you switch out onto other guys, you hedge high at the point of attack. You're sort of offering different coverages that pressure the ball in pick and roll defense in a way that a drop defense just doesn't. I think that's a really interesting thing to add to the mix here, whether he's filling in as a backup for Pirtle, playing next to Olynyk, maybe he's playing next to Scottie Barnes in some tandems in a front court pairing that would have all kinds of shot blocking potential, and good luck scoring on Scottie Barnes and Alex Sarr, just kind of doing dueling help blocks at the rim. That sounds like a ton of fun. He also looks like he's going to be a pretty deadly transition player. And so, again, going back to the previous segment, every question, every decision the Raptors front office makes over the next little while has to be through the lens of, does this work on a Scottie Barnes team? Does this fit a Scottie Barnes and Emmanuel Quickley team? But mostly Scottie Barnes. Quickley fits with anybody. Scottie Barnes fits with particular guys. And so does this guy, does this player, does this prospect fit with Scottie Barnes? I think it's a pretty unequivocal yes in the case of Alex Sarr, in a way that I don't think it's unequivocal with really anyone else in the top 6-7 range of this draft. It's just obvious. He fits beautifully as a big man partner. If you're going to roll a little bit smaller and have Scottie as your 4, he gives you coverage for the blow bys you might see from an RJ Barrett, of an Emmanuel Quickley. There's maybe potential down the line for Sarr to be a 4 if the 3-point shot can come along. That opens up all kinds of big ball possibilities, which is very exciting. He's not a wing. He's not the exact type of player you'd slot right in right now between Scottie Barnes and RJ Barrett. Ideally, RJ Barrett becomes a 2 on this team, I think. I've said that before. But as far as guys available at the top of this draft, the defense Alex Sarr can bring, that guy feels like he's going to be a very good defender. All defense upside, depending on, who you read and their thoughts on him, their level of belief. But, Kevin O'Connor, big believer, has him number 1. Hoop Intellect, which wonderful YouTube channel. Go check it out. Fantastic videos breaking down all the prospects with, weaknesses, improvement areas, strength, et cetera, et cetera. We'll try to get Hoop Intellect on the podcast at some point soon as well. But a really great breakdown of Alex Sarr, pointed out the all defense upside for him, pointed out the similarities in the game to Evan Mobley. And if he can ever find out how to shoot, Jaren Jackson Jr., Nick Claxton's another one that got thrown out there. It's not a sexy draft, but if you can get a guy who's of that ilk at the top of this draft, that's a game changer. This team needs defense. They need defensive talent. They need size. They need length. Alex Sarr checks all of those boxes. And like I mentioned as well, absolutely devastating transition player. I think he shot 24 of 29 in transition for Perth this year, per the numbers put together by Hoop Intellect on the breakdown I watched in the preparation for this podcast. Really, really interesting transition player, not only as a finisher who can run the lanes, fill the gaps, etc., but someone who can grab and go, take the ball, carry it up the floor. Those are those wing sort of tendencies that he's got in his game as well that are pretty damn interesting. The offense is the work in progress. The offense has a long way to go to, reach any sort of star level or anything like that. He'll be passable on offense, probably out of the gate, just as a short roll guy to make some plays out of the short roll. He's a pretty interesting passer. He's got some passing chops. He's got good feel for the game. Would certainly fit a Darko offense, knowing how to make the next play, make the next read, run some dribble handoffs, run some short roll stuff. Just as a traditional pick and roll man, I think he could work very well with Emmanuel Quickley as a vertical threat, that type of stuff. The shooting's where it's going to swing, right? If Alex Sarr learns how to shoot, he's probably an all-star. He shot 29%. That's not a lot to go on, right? And he shot 4 attempts a game. Again, it's 1 year in Perth. There's so much left to be figured out. He shot 71% at the line, which is promising, though he shot only 2 attempts a game. So that doesn't tell you a whole lot. Very tiny sample you're working with here as well. It's tough. It's tough to project these guys. You don't have a ton of tape and don't have a ton of just on-court reps and experience. But if the shot ever comes along for Alex Sarr, he becomes a prototypical modern big man. Switchable, rim protecting, 3-point shooting. It's kind of everything you want. It's the Miles Turner package that Raptors fans have fawned over for many years up until the Pascal trade when that dream died. But yeah, that's what you're getting in Alex Sarr, is a guy who is incredibly high upside defensively, Offense maybe takes a while to come along, but we've even seen, like, look at Evan Mobley. Maybe he's not what everyone projected him to be. He's not Tim Duncan. And I think it was always unfair to be like, well, he's just going to go and be Tim Duncan. But the offense has come along ever so incrementally with Mobley. He's an incredible defensive player. Yeah, the fit stuff on that Cavs team is weird, but it's not Evan Mobley's fault that the fit stuff on that Cavs team is weird. Evan Mobley's a fantastic, fantastic defensive player. He can be someone who you throw onto a wing who's killing you. Sarr can probably do that, right? Like, he's 7'1", but he's super quick, great with his feet, great turning the hips over, stuff like that you want to see from a perimeter defender. He can do that. And so, like, maybe you get into a situation where your answer to a big bruising wing, your Luka Doncic's, your Jason Tatum's of the world is, okay, Alex Sarr, go take that assignment. We'll figure out the rest. That's the possibility here with Alex Sarr as a defensive player. And for a team that so desperately needs an identity on defense, needs someone to build the defense around, Alex Sarr would be damn awesome as a number 1 overall pick for the Raptors. So yeah, if they win the lottery, I'm not advocating at all you trade out of the first overall pick if Alex Sarr is there. I think you just take him, you laugh, and you deal with the ramifications of not conveying your pick to the Spurs another time. Hopefully you try to go win a bunch of games next season and you're giving up not a very good pick to the Spurs. But, you know, it's not like Alex Sarr necessarily helps them win a ton of games next year, because rookies tend to not help you win a lot of games, but his defense will probably play from day one. It really should. Like, he's so quick, agile, great with his feet, covers tons of ground. I'm pretty fascinated by the defense of Alex Sarr. Maybe I'm overhyping it a little bit, but he's like the exact kind of defender I really like to watch. And so, yeah, I think he's the guy. He is the clear number 1 to me, both based on talent and fit. Talent and fit, it's Alex Sarr to me. We'll come back tomorrow. We will get back into our good, bad, and series with Katie Heindel to continue that along. We'll talk about the bad from this season, the stuff that can't be repeated for the Toronto Raptors to hopefully have success going into next year and all that good jazz. We'll have more stuff coming up later this week. More draft stuff, obviously, on the way. Lottery can't come soon enough. May 12th, circle on your calendars. Please come soon so we can stop talking about whether they keep or convey the pick and just talk about whether you're going to take someone with the pick or not. Either way, we'll replace keep or convey with keep or trade if they end up winning the lottery. So we'll have that to look forward to as well. Either way, thanks so much for tuning in, supporting the show, all that good stuff. Always appreciate when you support the show by following, subscribing, rating, reviewing, telling a friend, all that good stuff. We're on YouTube as well. Go subscribe there, hit the notification bell. You know the drill by now. Thanks so much for hanging out. We'll talk to you again on Wednesday with another episode of Locked On Raptors. Bye-bye.